Line's good.
Never on.
Close.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, physically distancing, as always. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Sean, have you noticed when you turn the air conditioner off to do these podcasts that you get really hot?
Well, that has been the case for the majority of the summer, but Scott, we here in the Ottawa Valley are blessed with an overnight low of 9 degrees as we record this tonight. I am excited.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good tonight. Get the windows wide open, start blowing some fresh air into the house. Should be great.
Yeah, I went for a walk along the Rito, get that low. It got down to about 13, 14 degrees overnight, and when I was out, it was in the 17, 18 range, and it was just lovely. Yeah,
real beaut.
The weather is a changing here in the nation's capital. It's starting to give the hints of fall, and you know what that means, Scott? Curling season.
You got that straight, Sean. Just before we got on the air this afternoon, I did receive an update from the Ottawa Curling Club about our opening plans. So it's just been delayed a bit to after Thanksgiving, which I think for a lot of clubs is sort of typical. Just after Canadian Thanksgiving is when clubs here start to open. We had always opened a little bit early. So I like this approach, waiting to see how things shake out after the kids start going back to school.
It certainly seems like that is why that choice was made, just to give the club a little bit more of a buffer. And with no team home in camp this year, the club doesn't need that ice as early as it usually does. So it can take that time, see how the back to school goes. And that we're seeing that a lot across the country, of facilities pushing back a week or 2 or 3, saying that that's the plan right now. But it's pretty clear that the people who are in charge want to see how back to school goes across the country before making any firm decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking at flights this week, but I decided let's not go anywhere until we see what happens.
So a couple, locally there was a club in Renfrew, which is about an hour north-ish of Ottawa, northwest-ish of Ottawa. You drive through it if you're going to North Bay from Ottawa, and the club there announced that they're not going to enforce the one sweeper rule, nor are they going to enforce masks on the ice. And that was like at the same time as Napanee announced that they were closing for the season. So you're just going to see different things across the country, and that's probably the right thing to do. That clubs should respond to whatever the conditions are in their area and respond to whatever the people who play there want to do, to a certain extent. You want to be receptive
to a certain extent,
to what the client base wants. So
sure.
So that's sort of a bit of a follow-up to what we talked about last week. But Scott, to get into the mindset of curling, we thought this would be a good week to go back and look at what the National Film Board of Canada has created in the area of curling. This is something that Ryan Olson sent to us on Twitter, that after we did the Corner Gas recap of their curling episode, he pointed out that the National Film Board has some curling content, and I'm glad he suggested this, Scott, because I very much enjoyed going back and watching these.
Yeah, it was fun to watch some old, I'll call them very old, films from the National Film Board site. So, excuse me, anybody that wants to go watch these, like say you want to turn the podcast off right now, go and watch these films, feel free to do so, and then come back and join us after you've watched them. They're both available on the NFB website. And we've tweeted Did we tweet a link?
Yeah, we tweeted
to
a link
those,
to both of those, so they'll be on our Twitter. If you go to GameOfStonesPod.com, in the blog section, there'll be a little write-up about them there as well. Or you can just go to the NFB website, which is just nfb.ca. In the search bar, just put curling. It's the only two things that come up.
Yeah, pretty fun. So, which one do you want to start with,
Let's go
Sean?
in chronological order of their release date, Scott. So let's start with The Curlers. This is a 1955 short film, that is set in beautiful Perth, Ontario, about 40 minutes-ish from where I sit right now. And Scott, let me read the synopsis to you from the National Film Board.
Before you do that, I kept hearing a different name for the town, but I know they filmed it in Perth.
Oh, did they say a different town? I mean, all the players are wearing Perth sweaters.
Yeah, they said it so many times. It was like Teville or Tayville, or like I believe they pronounced it. The actors pronounced it differently every time. So, let's just say
we'll
Perth.
go with Perth. So the synopsis: this is 1955. This is a 27-minute short film. The local curling club, one of rural Canada's most esteemed social institutions, exerts diverse influences on the affairs of its members. In this film, we see how an ingenious small-town lawyer employs the team spirit to settle a rift between two neighboring farmers, just in time for the all-important turkey bonspiel.
Sean, I think you got a future narrating movie synopses. Synopses. That's an interesting way to put it. An ingenious lawyer. And okay. So how do you want to do this? You want to go blow
by blow of what happens here. So this is in black and white, as the synopsis says, set in a small town. It takes place. It's filmed in Perth, Ontario. So we open up and we have this lawyer who is presented to us as Mr. Roberts. And he's talking about how he's on this team, this local rink, that they do really well. He's the vice on the team, and they're the top team, but there's another team coming for them, Scott. There's a team that's right on their heels that is looking to, as he says, quote, take the cup away from us. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. So so in this film, there's a lot of narration that is done sort of with establishing shots, and then I feel like the characters say the same thing.
That's the narration.
Like introduce us. Yeah, a little bit. So we are very well versed in the setup. Okay, this is a curling team. They're the best. They're playing in the turkey bonspiel.
Not yet.
Upcoming. So what they're going to want is to defend their sort of house, for lack of a better word.
So what we see is that Roberts is there at the club. It's just a regular night. He says that most nights he's at the club in the winter, either playing or watching, and the front end doesn't show up for their game. So they're stuck. They don't have a front end.
Yeah, what's going on?
They don't know what's going on. So he and the skip, they call over to both people, and they don't get any response.
Yeah, they suggested that, these guys would have either called or sent a message if they were going to be late. Hearing that in 2020 is kind of funny. Like, we can't just text them. Like they'll send a telegram message to let us know. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
It's like, basically if Seinfeld was set in the 2010s, then there's no shows because 95% of the episodes could be resolved through text message. Yeah. So,
exactly.
What we see, so the front end, there's one guy named McNair, Mac, and then the other guy is Henderson. And what we see is Henderson is traveling to his neighbor McNair's house. They have adjoining properties, but they seem to live really far away because McNair has to take Henderson has to take like a horse wagony thing, a sled over
Right.
there.
Yeah, I mean it's the country, right? So properties are, adjoining, but the houses can still be very far apart.
So what we see is Henderson arrives at the McNair residence. He knocks on the door, and Mrs. McNair opens the door, and he says, "Where's Mac?" He says, "Out in the barn." Now, Scott, I don't know why this was necessary to have this scene where the wife opens the door.
Yeah, there's so many scenes in this film that aren't necessary. Like, it's the longest 27 minutes, I think, that they could have possibly stretched this out to.
So we get this really cartoony music as Henderson is about to go into the barn. But before this, okay, this is actually my favorite scene in the whole thing. So McNair is there with his two kids. And I don't know how they're his two kids because he looks like he's like 65 and his wife looks like she's in her late 50s. And these two kids are like 5 years old. But they're presented as his kids. Okay. One of them, the older one, has filled up the corn for the livestock. The other one has filled up the wood. And the older one is told that he's going to get 50 cents. The younger one's going to get 25 cents. Now, Scott, how is filling up the corn a more difficult task and therefore worthy of double the pay than filling up the wood?
Well, Sean, it's not about the difficulty of the task. It's about the importance of the task.
It's cold. You need the wood.
So, yeah, but the animals got to eat first and foremost, I'd say.
If they're if they freeze to death, then they don't need to eat.
Well, because I would say, for me, putting shingles on a roof is more difficult than sending emails all day, and I think people who send emails all day sometimes get paid more than people who hammer shingles on roofs.
Sometimes they do, yeah.
And you know what? In that case, I would say the importance also falls to the shingle or. Anyway, that's the first thing I could think of.
So this is the first and only time we're going to see these kids. They have their dispute. The younger one rightly points out that this is unfair. And then Henderson comes in with the cartoony Angry Man music, and the father tells him to leave, and then they're never heard from ever again. So they have this confrontation in the barn. And apparently what's happened is that for a long time, in these adjoining lots, they don't know exactly where the property line is. But what farmers would be doing in the winter is going into the wooded area of their properties, cutting down trees, taking them into town to sell them as firewood. And for a long time, they've had this agreement of you just take what you need. We don't really know where the line is, and it's okay. But now Henderson has decided that McNair is taking too much of his wood, and he wants McNair to pay for this. Henderson comes in, and he is demanding $1,000, and McNair is saying no.
Yeah, no good.
That is the crux of this dispute. So they leave the barn, and this is my second favorite part. There's an amazing shot. So there's a long fence. We, as the camera, are behind the fence. The wife has come out. She's standing like 20 feet away from them as they argue and use a lot of hand motions, but not a lot of mouth moving is going on. So it's a lot of pointing and gesticulating back and forth until Henderson leaves and McNair comes over to his wife. And they have a bit of a discussion about what happened. And McNair says he's going to go to the lawyer. And then we get full tight shot of the wife saying, I don't know what's gotten into him. He's never been this agitated. Now, Scott, how would you describe the way she reads this line?
I would say is she pretty reserved?
Yeah.
In the sense of it sounds like she's reading something.
Yeah, it feels to me like someone's behind the camera with a big cue card of what the line is.
It's very like Robert De Niro on
Yeah,
Saturday Night
very,
Live.
very stilted. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, like, she's the only
Yes.
woman in the show, except for his secretary, I
Yeah.
think. The lawyer's secretary. So, they had to give her a line.
Yes, and she made a meal out of it.
Very,
Yeah.
very much so.
So McNair says that he's going to go see his lawyer, and hey, you know who his lawyer is? His vice Skip. How convenient is that?
Yeah, it's really great, right? Convenient. This is my lawyer.
But
right here.
before we get into the lawyer's office, so McNair goes to the lawyer's office. We're now in the lawyer's office, and Scott mentioned the secretary. So Roberts is talking with his secretary, who mentions that a woman called to change her will. And apparently this is several times this year she has called to change her will. And they're both very confused as to why. And Robert says she's done this a lot, and the secretary says that's what I told her, as if the woman didn't know that she had changed her will multiple times. I found that kind of confusing. She doesn't know that she's doing this.
This is also something that doesn't play at all to her
No.
story. And I feel like in a larger film, okay, maybe you've got a subplot where a lot of people are changing their wills, and it's sort of curious as to why. But this is a 27-minute film, and this is a minute that's extraneous to everything.
So if it was 4 seconds of she wants to change her will again, really? Why? I don't know. Weird. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, it drags out for 45 seconds to a minute of this conversation that has absolutely no payoff.
And a lot of shots of the characters sort of thinking, while sometimes there's narration over it, sometimes there's not. We'll get to another long, gratuitous shot a little bit later, but
So
anyway.
Roberts goes in and he has this meeting with McNair, and basically they talk about what's going on, and Roberts has this weird question so apparently what has happened is Henderson has said, here's where the property line is, here's all the trees you've taken, here's what you owe me. And Roberts says, well, if that's where the line is, would you owe him that amount of money? And McNair basically goes, I don't know. It's
well, maybe we should figure it out.
It's so strange. Just So fortunately, they get a phone call in the middle of their meeting that there's a surveyor who's out to look at where the property line actually is. So they can head on out and see what the surveyor decided.
Yeah, neutral third party to come and decide exactly where the line is and how much is owed.
So they go out, there's a surveyor, and there's also the lawyer for Henderson, whose name is Young. So now we have Henderson, represented by Young, and we have McNair, who's represented by Roberts. And the surveyor's there and says, actually, the line is closer to your house, McNair, than we thought. So more of this land is Henderson's than even what we thought it was. So you actually owe a lot more money. And then the surveyor leaves. So
right. The surveyor says, my job is to tell you where the line is. You guys work out the rest.
Here's my question. This surveyor was clearly brought in by Henderson and his lawyer.
Yes,
what
clearly.
the hell type of lawyer is Young or Roberts to have this guy who's hired by the other side, and it hurts your client, and you just stand there and you're like, okay. Where did this guy go to law school?
It's crazy.
Are you kidding me? Could somebody please explain that to me? Why in the world would a lawyer who apparently is presented as being good at his job just accept the conclusion of somebody hired by the opposite side?
Yeah, okay, we need an independent surveyor. That was the whole point of it. I want to bring my own guy in. Now, in a small town in the 1950s, probably there's not more than one surveyor.
Maybe not. But I really do think that this scene compromises the synopsis calling this guy ingenious.
Yeah, I will say the word ingenious, a little bit of hyperbole.
So they have this discussion, and now because there's more land that Henderson owns, they want more money, even up to $2,500.
I believe the first offer was like 10,000
Was it?
that he wanted, and then Roberts, the lawyer for Henderson, said, "Oh, that's crazy." No, the lawyer for Mac.
Yeah.
Said that's crazy. Like maybe we could do 2,500, and Mac says, "There's no way I can't afford to pay that. Can't afford that. What, I got $2,500 laying around? I'm just a farmer who sells wood on the side.
Can't even afford to pay my kids the same thing."
Right. Like all things being equal, sure I'd give it to you, but I ain't got that kind of money. So is this a point where they storm off?
Well, okay. So they're having this discussion. It's outside because they're doing the survey. And then Robert says, let's get out of the cold. And Scott, how would you describe the location where they go to get out of the cold?
It's what we call in the biz the secondary location. Nobody comes back from the secondary location. But so I would describe it as it once was a house and is now a few stone walls with no roof and large gaps in the walls.
Yeah, I would think I would describe it as a good location if you were filming a World War II movie and you needed a bombed out town in France set. Like that's what this looks like. And to get to this place, again, to get out of the cold, they trudge through knee-high snow and then just stand in the knee-high snow.
There's no way that this is less cold unless the wind chill, adds minus 20 degrees to the temperature.
Like it's,
and then we can stand behind the windbreak. But otherwise, come on.
It's absolutely insane what is happening in this scene. So, so they have their discussion, and the conclusion is basically that Henderson is going to sue McNair. They're going to go to court.
Yeah, the front end suing each other, Sean. What front end do you think it would be the most amusing to see sue each other out of sort of professional curlers?
Front ends?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. I think it'd be funny if you had Don Askin and Jocelyn Peterman suing each other, and then one of them hires Jennifer Jones as their lawyer.
This would be exactly the plot of this movie. I think that we could do a remake, a 2020 remake, starring those women. I think that would be perfect.
That would be, but in terms of just, who would be? Well, I mean, Hebert Morris, right?
Yeah. I think that's it. And I think if we're going back in time, it would be Hebert and Kennedy.
Basically, anything involving
whoever's with Hebert. Yeah, it'd be funny.
So we get the lawsuit. We go to the courthouse for some reason, and the courthouse scene involves them adjourning for 15 minutes, and then somebody coming who works at the courthouse saying to Roberts that it's gonna be tough with no curling. And this is like,
yeah, he's saying basically like your team is done.
That's trouble. And this is like a 2.5-minute scene, but apparently this is what gives Roberts the idea to use curling to get them back together.
Yeah, I think this is where the wheels start turning in his head. He's like, all right, that's right. We're not going to have a curling team if this keeps going. So how can I make that happen?
And again, this guy has been friends with these people for years. They're on the best team in the club. He's an ingenious lawyer.
Yeah.
And it takes some staffer at the courthouse to point out that maybe he could use curling to get them to talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Not the most ingenious lawyer.
No. So then we get to go to the Canadian Club lunch, Scott. This is at the local hotel. They're having a monthly lunch. A speaker comes in. This is something that actually is pretty true to form for the 1950s. These Canadian Club lunches that men would come, and men would come. Like, women were not allowed at these things. And they would have a lunch and they would listen to a local speaker. And these were actually very important for local, usually salespeople, to make connections. So they go, the two lawyers are there. Just by happenstance, they get to sit next to each other. So that's fortunate.
Ooh, I don't think it's happenstance, Sean. I think Roberts set it up.
You think so? With the hotel guy?
There is a scene just before this. There's a narration of, "Oh, I knew Young would be at the hotel for lunch," and then there's another 2 to 3 minutes of the hotel clerk helping a customer, and then Roberts comes in and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little late." And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, we kept a plate for you." It's like, why is the guy who plays the hotel keeper, is he like somebody's friend and they owed him a favor? They're like, "Okay, we'll put you in our film," because it's another scene that like really has no bearing on the outcome of the case. Like, it really doesn't matter. And then the long scene I was talking about is when Roberts comes into the luncheon. There's a long shot of him walking around all the tables.
That's great.
Like down the long table.
Like, "Hey Bill, hey Jim, how you doing? Good to see you." Like, it's like he's at the Price is Right. And he's coming down the aisle and he's giving everybody high fives. It's like, hey.
But he's coming down the aisle very slowly.
Yeah, it's like if the Price is Right was like a guillotine instead of prizes. Like that. That's the energy he has.
I've only got to believe that editing film in those days it was so much harder than it would be now, because now I think you would see him walk in the room and it would cut to him getting to his seat and seeing Young. Sure. Right? But when you're editing with like film, physical film, and you got a slice, it's like, just leave it there.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's not worth getting the scalpel out for those 4 frames.
Yeah.
So they're having lunch. They're discussing the case, and basically the lawyer is not really willing to discuss with Roberts. So Young thinks they have a strong case. They can win. He thinks they're in good shape. He's new to town as well. Doesn't have a lot of experience with the local community. So he thinks that moving forward with the lawsuit is the best course of action for him and Henderson.
Yeah, and Roberts, on the other hand, is worried that this money is going to cause Henderson and Mac to not become friends anymore. So he's like, what's worth more, friendship or money?
Yeah, so in the inflation calculator, Scott, they're suing for, if it's $2,500, in the Bank of Canada inflation calculator, $2,500 in 1955 is $24,326.24 today. How many of your friends are you willing to cut out of your life for $24,326?
All of them. No, that's that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But your best friends, guys you play with every week at the curling rink, you're not going to throw them overboard for that.
Well, apparently Young thinks that it's a good choice for Henderson to do that.
Well, like you said, Sean, he's only been in town 18 months, and he also they do say he really likes litigating, and he doesn't get a chance to do it very much in this town.
Not enough court action in this town.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I see it, my chance to play Perry Mason in a courtroom.
Too many old ladies changing their will 87 times a year. So Roberts gets nowhere with Young, and then Scott, it's Turkey Day apparently, where all the farmers bring in their turkeys to town, and people, according to the way this is filmed, go around paw at every farmer's turkeys and decide which one they want to buy.
Yeah, you got to hold it up, see how heavy it really is, see how fat it is. You got good thighs on that turkey. Yeah. Find like the choicest turkey.
So this is happening, and it also corresponds with the printing of the posters for the turkey spiel, the biggest spiel in town.
Yeah, the guy printing the posters, he comes out from the printer and says, "Hey, here's the poster for this year's spiel." And Roberts thinks, "Oh boy, that looks really good."
Yeah, so the person who comes out is also his skip, and he says, "Who are we going to get to play with us?" And Roberts has the idea that, hey, why don't you get Henderson, and then I'll get McNair, and we won't tell them.
Well, he says to the skip, "I'll get a fourth."
He doesn't even tell the skip. This is all his plan.
Yeah.
So the skip is going to get Henderson, and Roberts is going to get McNair. And when he calls McNair, he says, we want you to play. We want you on the team. And yeah, the skip is going to get the fourth. So they're running this play, this sort of switcheroo on each of them.
It's like the curling version of Parent Trap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the one twin says, "Hey, Mom, come to this thing." And the other one says, "Oh, Dad, I want you to come to this." And they get their parents together and they're going to make up.
So that's the goal. So we get to the turkey spiel, and everyone is there except for Henderson and Mac. And they walk in, and a hush falls over the room.
Yeah, all like really cramped quarters in the Perth Curling Club at this time. Not very COVID-friendly environment. They didn't future-proof this movie. There's a lot of people crammed into that space, and yeah, like you say, the two guys who are at odds come in. Ooh, everybody quiets down. Sean, did that ever happen when you and Dean Moser walked into the curling club after he'd kicked you off the team?
No, because I never went back to the club.
Fair enough.
So we have this moment. Henderson is going to leave, but they bring him back and they say, "Hey, it's us. Don't blame each other. Let's just play. Let's just win this thing. We're too good to not defend our title."
Mm-hmm. Let's bring the team together in the spirit of curling.
Yeah.
And give it our best.
So they're going to go and play, and this is apparently the easiest bond spiel in the world to win, because all you have to do is play one game, and you are the champion.
Well, they're the best team in town.
So they're going to play their arch rival, the team that's coming up on their heels. And it doesn't start out well for the squad, Scott. They're not working together. There's no cohesion, and they fall behind.
Yeah, not a lot of communication, I noticed. The first rock slides through the house, and at that point you don't know, is this guy doing it on purpose to get back at his lawsuit rival? I forget who the lead was.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but they're frustrated, they're not going along. But then Roberts notes, we all got mad, and when we got mad, that's when we started to work together, which is weird because McNair and Henderson were already mad. So if anger is the key, they're mad already.
Yeah, Sean, but they were mad at each other, and what they needed to do was to get mad at the other team and say, "Oh, we can't let these guys beat us. Right. It's up to us to come together as a team and stick it to these young whippersnappers."
Yes, and that's
who actually look much older,
but way older. Yeah, but that's what happens. They come together. They start to play well. They tie. They get behind, and it's the last end. And they have the hammer, and they have the shot to win. And Henderson and McNair getting ready to sweep, and they say to each other, "Let's go. Let's do this."
Yeah, let's get it done.
So the shot that they have to play is a bit of a little out-turn tap with as the other team's stone is just off the button, and just a nice little, hack board weight shot. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
So they.
Yeah, and. So he makes the shot. Spoiler alert. And Sean, what does Roberts say when the shot is made?
So the shot knocks out the other team's stone, and he says, "That's it. We've got the game."
We've got the game. Like, what a weird thing to say.
And what else is weird is that nobody reacts to what's going on until he says that. Like, it's not like there's a close measure. It's pretty obvious that they have enough to win, but everybody waits for him to declare that they've got the game to react, including the people in the lounge.
Right. They should be able to know. Well, you know what? It's far away. They were playing, for some reason, the last end at the away end, which we can talk about if you want. And then also, so they're playing it to the away end. And also, so many people are smoking in there, Sean. It's got to be a real hazy atmosphere.
Yeah.
So maybe even from the lounge, you can't see the other end.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, a lot of folks, and it's weird too, they're smoking pipes.
Yeah, I did see one cigar. Right. But a lot of pipes, a lot of cigars, just like, weird.
Very strange. Or maybe everyone was confused, Scott, because when the skip threw the rock, he threw an out turn, which was good because that's what they needed.
Yeah.
And then as they showed the rock traveling down the ice, it had switched to an in turn. And then, Henderson and McNair, really great sweepers because they were able to push it all the way back to being an out turn by the time it made contact with the other stone. Yeah,
I think they shot one stone going down the sheet and just reused the same shot
100%
every time.
And I also noticed, Scott, too, it was really convenient that when they went to film a stone being thrown and traveling down the ice, it was really convenient that right next door to the Perth Curling Club, rockets were being launched. Really convenient that those two things synced up so well, because that's the only possible explanation for the sound that the stones make.
Yeah, they're very loud. Very loud.
It's pretty insane. So the team wins. They come off the ice. They shake hands with a procession line of people who are there to congratulate them.
Yeah, it reminded me of a wedding. The reception line after a wedding. Like, oh, good game. And it seemed like the two teams didn't shake hands until they got up into the warm room, too.
Well, it's cold out there.
A little bit warmer, I think, than a farmer's field. But anyway.
And then, strangely, the tables are for 4. There's no 8-person tables here. So the skip and the skip and the vice are going to sit with the other skip and vice. And then the front ends are going to sit together. And Scott, once you know it, McNair and Henderson are friends again.
Yeah, the plan worked. They saw how much they have fun working together. And you know what? We can't let $25,000 2020 money come between us. We just won turkeys.
So everything's good. But then we have our follow-up scene. This is at church, presumably the next day-ish.
Yep.
And Young and Roberts, the two lawyers, talk. And apparently after the bond spiel, Henderson talked to the lawyer and said, I don't really want to go through with this lawsuit. Let's come to some sort of a settlement. And they agreed on a number. And then Young leaves. And then Roberts talks with Charlie, who was his opponent the day before, and says, hey, everything's settled, everything's good, and hey, maybe you should pick up this lawyer guy, because given what just happened, I think he might take up curling.
He believes that he's shown Young that the real way to settle disputes in our town is on the curling ice, not in the courtroom.
And then Charlie and Roberts go to the service. So they walk into the church. So Scott, my question is, why is Young there? Why isn't he going into the service? Like, what is going on with him? Does he just hang out outside the church on Sunday morning?
Oh, maybe he went to the earlier service.
Maybe. I found that very confusing.
Yeah, I really Well, they had to meet somewhere.
But they didn't. They clearly hadn't planned on that. They just bumped into each other.
Well, we couldn't have arranged another, luncheon so soon after the last
true.
one.
That's very true. So they come to this
Yeah.
agreement. Everything's great. Curling's great. All that. Now, Scott, again, I don't want to harsh on this guy too much, but at the start of the film, we are told that he wants $1,000 for the land. So Henderson wants $1,000 initially. McNair offers him $400, and he says no. And then, in the final assessment, what they agree to is $1,250.
Yeah.
So by getting the lawyers involved, Henderson ends up getting more money than he initially wanted, and yet Roberts is portrayed as a brilliant lawyer, even though getting him involved ultimately led to his client paying more money than if he had not been involved at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a smart idea, right?
No. Yeah, and Roberts says that McNair was happy. Yeah, it's only $1,250. He didn't want to pay $1,000 a week ago. You suck at this. You're terrible.
No, but
it's a good thing there's no court cases in this town because he is bad at his job.
But when he didn't want to pay $1,000, it was because he thought he owned more of that land, and then he found out he actually owned less.
Allegedly, they didn't challenge the surveyor's report for the guy who was hired by the other side.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
It's not great, and that's how we ended. They're friends again, and I understand why Henderson's happy, and I'm not really sure why McNair is happy, and Roberts just seems like a dolt.
Roberts is pretty dumb.
And there you have it, Scott. That's the Curlers.
There you have it.
Oh, sorry. We
what
we
a trip we
close
went
on a picture of a half-frozen river. Fade to
Yep.
black.
Yeah. Presumably the Rideau River.
Presumably, yes. So what do you think? What's your main takeaway from the film?
My main takeaway is that curling can help solve problems between friends.
Adorable.
Yeah. My other takeaway is this could have easily been 15 minutes instead of 27.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that could easily be cut here. The whole will scene, the lunch could probably be cut. The confrontation could easily be cut down. The kids, we don't need them in here at all.
Yeah,
the
get them out
curling
of here.
stuff could be cut down too. It was nice that the entire male membership of the Perth Curling Club showed up to be extras in the film, but we don't need it to the extent that we saw it. I don't really understand the need to see the dead turkeys in the truck either, and the people manhandling the turkeys, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, this one could easily be cut down.
Sean, did you by chance calculate what that 50 cents would be worth in $20?
Let me look here. We got
I did it, so do you want to guess?
well, so if we had a 25, if we had
almost
it's
a
10 multiple basically, right?
10
it's
times
$5.
simple. Yeah, $4.87.
Yeah, because if $2,500 turned into just under $25,000, the rough 10 multiple.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. $5 to fill the corn. Would you do that?
Well, I would want $5 to fill the wood. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Damn right. All right, we've talked too much about this one. Let's move on to the next film. 10
minutes from 1963. This one's in color. The other one was black and white. This one's called Gone Curlin'. And according to the National Film Board synopsis, this short comedy follows a visitor to the prairies as he slowly discovers the cult of curling. At first, our protagonist doesn't seem to understand why everyone is so crazy about curling. But once he studies up, buys the right gear, and gets a few lessons, he can't be stopped. This hilarious short film records the history of a rookie's first game. Even non-curlers will feel the pull of the stones and the flick of the brooms in this choice rinkside view.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I thought this one was pretty funny.
Wow, really? I thought the use of the word hilarious here was really pushing it.
Okay, maybe not hilarious, but humorous.
Maybe. He also doesn't.
Oh boy, it sounds like I'm higher.
Yeah, he
on
also
this
doesn't. Well, I mean, he doesn't buy any gear, nor does he get a few lessons, plural, and he very clearly can be stopped. So, anyway. All right,
Okay.
so this one we open, Scott, on the beautiful town of Eston, Saskatchewan, and a road traveling salesman is pulling into town. It's new territory for him. It's his first time in Eston, Saskatchewan, and he shows up and nobody's in town because, Scott, everybody has gone curling roll credits.
He's like, hey, where is everybody? You know, pulls up in front of the co-op.
Yep.
Goes to one of the stores he was planning on visiting, and he's like, where is everybody? And then suddenly sees a sign that, Sean, I thought it would have been in the fashion of gone fishing and had it be curling with an apostrophe at the end. But it said gone curling with the full word spelt out.
Yeah.
Do you think that it would have been better to have it with the N or with the G?
I think in the show, like in the movie, it's better if it's Curlin with just the N. But I don't think you want to call the movie that. So maybe that's why you want to put the G in the movie. Like, you know, even,
why don't you want to call the movie that?
Yeah, search engine optimization. I'm sure they were big on that in 1963.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
We get an internal monologue of the salesman saying that everyone's gone, and he calls it an epidemic, Scott. An epidemic of curling in Eston.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It was, everybody's gone crazy. Like, where is everyone? Oh, they're suffering from the curling epidemic.
Yes, he actually says, suffer in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, that made me laugh.
He goes to the hotel. He can't check in. They've gone curling as well. Very lax security at this hotel because the keys to the room are just hanging there and accessible, but nobody's staffing it. But the salesman is not going to just take a room. He's going to get a curling magazine and start to read about the sport. And Scott, I felt that this magazine didn't really do a good job of promoting the sport.
No, it was like a novel almost. It looked to me that was all about, the rules of curling kind of, but not really, and saying it was great, but not really saying how.
Yeah, he actually refers to curling as a disease of the mind.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
And Scott, the magazine tells him that all you need to curl is a cardigan, a comfortable cap, rubbers, broom, and stones. Now, multiple of those in 2020 parlance mean very different things.
Yes. Have you ever heard them called rubbers? I think I have.
Never have.
I think somebody said it once, and I was like, what? Yeah, they're referring to grippers.
Yes.
For those who don't know.
So that's all you need. I love that comfortable cap is there. It's the only one of these that has an adjective in front of it. Like everything else is just the item, but the cap must be comfortable.
Yeah, and I would say 99% of them are TAMs, right?
Yeah, and based on what we learn in the film, it's not commented on, but it's preferable if your comfortable cap has just completely is completely covered with pins.
Well, yeah, that's how people are going to know what fields you've gone to.
Yeah, just don't slip on the ice because one of those is definitely going to be lodged in your head.
Ugh, I never thought of that.
Just saying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so the magazine also informs them about how to deliver the stone. It says, don't change the position of your head, shoulders, or your body, except to elevate by straightening the knees. And there's nothing to it. That's it. That's all you
Nothing
gotta
to
do.
it. Yeah, that's how you do it.
And he determines that he can be good at it just by reading this magazine. He's going to be good at it.
Yes. So where's his next stop after deciding he's going to be good at it, Sean? Is it a dream sequence?
We got a dream sequence in a 10-minute film.
This is my favorite part of the movie, by the way.
So what is your favorite part? Because I have a couple things written down here about why this is an amazing sequence.
Okay, so in this sequence, our protagonist, they don't say his name
No.
ever, do they? No. So he sort of envisions what his life would be like as a rock star curler. And he walks into the club and everybody's all like, "Oh, so great to see you." Then when he gets on the ice, this is my favorite part. When he walks out into the ice shed, he is mobbed Beatles style by fans who are, I guess, stopping their games and screaming and mobbing him, saying like, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" Like, so into it. That's my favorite part.
And they're all women, they're all women who are running up to him too.
It really does remind me of the Beatles in 1963.
Yeah, it's just
64.
The 60s. The women are just woo, yeah. And then he gets into the hack and he does a routine with the Stones, where he's sort of doing yoga with the Stones and he lifts them up over his head, no problem.
Puts them out sideways.
And then he does like an underhand twirl, sort of like a softball pitcher, like a softball fast pitch pitcher, and just heaves the stone in the air down the ice.
Yeah, it looks like, you know, when you go bowling and sometimes your ball gets stuck or your fingers get stuck in the holes, and it kind of goes up, and you're like, "Whoa, whoops!" That's what it looked like. But when they cut to the result of the shot, it's sliding smoothly right onto the button.
That easy.
Yeah. Can't be stopped.
No. Earlier in the dream sequence, we also see him going to get his gear. He goes to the curling shop, and he gets his sweater, and he gets his comfortable cap, his rubbers. He gets everything he needs. Now, Scott, this part of the sequence I really like because the music that they play as this is going on, I was listening to the music and I thought, oh, so Mickey Mouse is going to show up.
Did it have like a little bit of a yakety sax quality? Yeah. And so not only does he get his sweater, he tries on 2 sweaters.
Doesn't like them.
And then says signals to the proprietor of the shop, "How about your sweater?
Give me your sweater right now."
Because it's the kind, you have this kind of sweater, Sean. It's got, the stones with the brooms crossed in a pattern on it. It's like the classic curling sweater.
It's exactly what you want your curling sweater to be.
Right. And the guy running the shop is like, "I guess so. Like if I'm going to make a sale, you can have the sweater off my back."
And everyone's just okay with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird.
The other thing about the shop, did you notice that there's a baby pitcher on the counter? Like an oversized baby pitcher?
Yes, and they cut to it at a certain point.
Why is that there?
There's
no
idea.
other babies in the film. And like if you want to have it as set dressing of, oh, this guy has a baby. Okay. But why is it oversized? And why do we need a tight shot of it just randomly in the middle of the film?
And it's a little bit creepy looking too. It's not like it's those baby shots where, they're sleeping and they're so cute. This is kind of like a kid looking like he's smiling, but he's got maybe 2 teeth.
Yeah, it's like if it was the Gerber baby, but the Gerber baby was possessed by the devil. That's how I would describe this photo.
Yeah, that's pretty apt.
So we get through the end of the dream sequence. We head on over to the Eston Curling Club, little 3-sheet club, and this traveling salesman, he's just so charming and smooth. he's able to go to a team and say, "Need a player?" And they're like, "Yeah, come on out. You can play with us." Now, Scott, have you ever been in a curling club where a stranger comes in and just gets a game?
I can't say that I have.
This is
No.
not something that happens. Maybe it should be something that happens.
Maybe, yeah, like we've talked about, curling club is a pretty intimidating place. This one in the 1960s seems great.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, sure, buddy. Come on in. Like, this is how you get new members.
Yeah, it's true. It's just, it's incredible. You just show up in Eston, Saskatchewan, where the whole town has gone to the club to play, and yet these guys are short a player.
Well, Sean, do you know the population of Eston right now?
I'm going to go with 604.
Ooh, you're a little under. It's 1,061 as of the 2016 census.
All right. Eston, Saskatchewan. Good job. Kicking around. I like it.
Yeah.
So he gets on the team, and now we've established that everyone in Eston is there, but they've also set up stands, bleachers for people to watch this game. I don't know if this is an important game or not, but a lot of folks are watching, paying attention.
Yeah, a lot of folks are watching.
So he comes out to play, and he informs us through a voiceover that all you have to do is shove the stone down the ice. And Scott, I appreciated that because he didn't use the word thrust.
Yeah, that's not your favorite word,
not
right?
To describe the speed of a stone. So he comes out, he falls down a few times, and everyone laughs at him because these people are not very nice. And they're not like, they're not like, oh, this guy's trying. Like, there's no support in this crowd. It's just like, you're an outsider, you don't belong, we're laughing at you.
So, like, as inviting as they were and saying, like, hey, come on in, you can play, maybe they just did it to be able to laugh at him.
Maybe.
You think so?
That's kind of Machiavellian of them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's maybe a little more than I would put on the people of Eston.
They seem like nice people. So they go out, they give them a single lesson, not a few lessons, a single lesson. Keep your foot in the hack. Let the weight of the stone do the work for you. And he goes out and he slides out. Not a great slide, but not terrible. And he hogs the first one, but that's okay.
It's okay. A lot of people do that.
He's now into the game. He says that he doesn't understand the sweeping of it, but he says that it looks good and it sounds good. But primarily it looks good to do the sweeping. And, quote, other things also look good. And then you flash to the women's game.
So you flash to the women's game and you're thinking, oh, this guy's a real creepo. Yep. He's just watching the women. But no, then he says, and not just the ladies.
Yeah, it's for whole families.
Yeah, there you got families, you got women playing with men, playing with kids at the same time, I guess. Anybody can come out and
play.
play.
Explain to me this, just the structure of this moment where he says, the sweeping looks good, but it's not all that looks good. And then we flash to the women, and then he says, families are here. I didn't understand that because clearly the line of it's not just the sweeping that looks good and then flashing to the women is meant to say that there are attractive women here, therefore curling is great. And then the next thing out of his mouth is families are here.
Well, Sean, if you think about the first film we watched, there were no women allowed at the club.
And now women are allowed.
And now, now women are allowed.
To be gawked at by this traveling
Pretty
salesman.
Great. Well, I mean, yeah.
It's an awkward moment in the movie.
Yeah, I'll admit it is a little bit awkward.
So we get back to the game. The score is close as they go back and forth. We get the epic camera is put on the stone shot, and we get to spin around as the stone goes down the ice. What did you think of that?
Ooh, got me a little dizzy. I'll admit.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one.
At first I thought, what is going on? And then, ooh. Yeah, a little weird.
Yeah, so we get down to the last rock, Scott. The skip throws an out turn, but magically it's an in turn when it hits the other stone, and they win the game. Great sweeping again to change the turn. And
Great
and
sweeping
the guy
again.
wins the game in his first appearance on the ice. And Scott, his reaction is to say that I was cocked.
Yeah, he sure was. Super into it, loves curling, hooked for
Yeah.
life.
So he's super excited, really into it. And then we see outside that he was so involved in the game that he forgot about everything else, and he's getting a ticket.
That's right. But what does the ticket
Gone
say?
curling. So
Hey.
is the police officer saying, I would write you a full ticket, but I don't have time because I've gone curling?
It's like an IOU
Like,
ticket.
I will give you
that
a
says-
ticket.
This one's on me,
Okay.
but next time.
Right. And also, if everyone in the town is at the curling club, why isn't the police officer at the curling club too? Or like, what is he out patrolling? Because if it's established that everyone is at the curling club at this time, it's not like he has to protect against crime elsewhere. Or if he is going to do that, maybe
Well,
he
sure
should
he
go to the
does.
hotel where anyone can just get into any of the rooms.
Well, the hotel's across the street or something. So yeah, that's what he's doing. He's patrolling for out-of-towners that might come in and try and take advantage of the businesses.
Right. So that's so then we see him drive away, and he says, "Hey, this is great, but this is just one of the many towns in my territory. So the question is, how am I ever going to get any work done?" Roll credits, and that's it. So it's weird because if you're a traveling salesperson and you can curl and you're driving through small town Saskatchewan, where every club or every city or every town has a club, you just go and you play in these games, and that's how you meet people in the town, and that's how you get the connections to sell things. Like, it's not how would I ever get any work done, it's, oh my god, I just got a pipeline into the best sales technique ever.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I met so many customers at the curling club. Oh no, I'm never going to get any work done because I'm always at the curling club.
But again, I'm not a traveling salesman the same way I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that making connections, meeting people, spending time with them is the most important thing.
Well, one would think,
So
yes.
having this ability now to go to a curling club and fit in, just that is your work. So,
Yeah.
So that's that. So Gone Curling. So Scott, what was your big takeaway from Gone Curling?
My takeaway was that, curling's a game for everyone. And anyone, including a true beginner, can have fun at a curling club.
Absolutely. So you said you thought this was funny. What was the funniest part?
Oh, the funniest part was the dream sequence.
Okay. I agree.
It felt like it was also sped up a bit.
Yeah.
You know how when you see old film and it's at a different frame rate, like a faster frame rate? That I sort of like that too. The narration over top of him at the shop and then going into the rink. I thought that was great.
I agree that the dream sequence was the best part of this. So, Scott, there's an 8-year difference between these two things. The most obvious difference is that Gone Curlin' is in color and that the Curlers is black and white. But what other differences did you notice between the two films?
I sort of thought the sort of fun level was upped in the 1963 film. It seemed like a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere than sort of the buttoned up world of 1955. I thought people spoke a little closer to how we speak contemporarily in the 63 film. Whereas in the 1955 film, it seemed very scripted and very like the forced a bit by the actors.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. And the other thing too is just you notice little things that, like in the curlers, they're using like what you would think of as like a kitchen broom, and in Gone Curling, they're using straw brooms that you would still see guys throw with today.
Yeah.
So that's just an evolution in the equipment that you're seeing that's being used. Both films have ashtrays on the ice, which is always fun to see, sort of that throwback. The curlers is way slower than Gone Curling, for sure.
What did you think about the way that they cleaned the rock, which was to pick the rock up and then put it down on their broom and sort of turn it back and forth? So much
faster. I mean, if you have a broom that's as big as the rock is that you just place down, like why not?
Yeah, I guess why not?
So I liked it. I sort of the differences or that idea. Ryan Olson tweeted at us that the curlers. This is a synopsis of the curlers. Come for the curling, stay for an interminable legal squabble over timber between two team members.
Yeah, that's definitely right.
And, even though, and he mentions this too, that even though they're only 8 years apart, they feel like they're 20 years apart. Yeah,
it feels like two different worlds, really.
Very, very different films, and just almost light years apart. So I don't regret watching either of them.
No, me neither. I would not watch the curlers a second time.
No, I don't think there's a lot of rewatchability to it. I agree.
Yeah. That's okay.
There doesn't have to be,
No, I think, watch it once. Sort of understand the filmmaking aspects of it. And there you go.
So there you go. That's your National Film Board curling content for you.
Yeah, I want to hear what everybody else thinks of them. I know the National Film Board Twitter account, Sean, said they were excited to hear our reviews.
Well, we'll see if they're excited after they hear what we say.
Well, I'm sure they will be. I hope we've done them somewhat justice in talking for longer than the running time of both of the films put together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I gotta say, I do like the National Film Board. I mean, what I do professionally is study national cultural institutions, and I do think the National Film Board, once you get past the Second World War, is a valuable national cultural institution. So, it's kind of fun to watch some of these old films back.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice that we have access to them.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and everyone does. And I think even internationally, I don't think they have geo blocks on anything. So if anybody wants to go to the National Film Board site, you can watch stuff, and pretty much everything is available either to stream on the site or to download from the National Film Board. And what's cool about these two things too, Scott, if you just look at the context of when they're made, of 1950s, the curlers in the 1950s, and then in the 60s for Gone Curling, they're both very much products of their time. And when if you read about the National Film Board as an institution and what it's trying to accomplish in its history, that these two films both really hit in what the organization as a whole is trying to do. So it's kind of fun to look at them in that respect as well, and see the changes within the film board represented in the two movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these films do sort of accomplish that task.
Yeah,
you're right.
Very, very nationalistic, right. Very pro Canada, sort of, reaching out to or playing into some of the stereotypes that exist about Canada and what curling is. Some of the ideas that are represented here could just as easily be in a Vic essay at the end of a Breyer or Scotty's.
Yeah, you're right.
So good stuff there to the National Film Board. Fun times, and definitely encourage everybody to check those two out. As we said, if you go to the National Film Board website, in their search bar, just put in curling, you can find it. Or like we said, we'll tweet it out. It'll be on our site as well, links to everything. So there you have it. National Film Board curling, good
there
stuff.
You have it.
So Scott, That'll do it for this week.
Yeah, before we go, Sean, I wanted to send a shout out to Matt Gamboa of the Southern California Curling Center. I ordered a T-shirt from them and got it in the mail today with a little bonus content because the shipping was delayed. So thanks a lot, Matt.
What was your bonus content?
That was. Oh, I don't want to say.
Okay.
It was an extra shirt, but so no, it was really unexpected and very, very much appreciated. So anybody looking to help support the Southern California Curling Center, go over to curling.la and check out the store. That's sort of the main moneymaker they've got right now. Some really cool T-shirts.
Yeah, they have good
there.
designs out there in Southern California.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this.
So good stuff there. Tweet it out, Scott. Well, Scott will tweet out a photo of it and put one on Instagram too.
Yes, I'll do that tonight.
So that'll do it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have not yet, please do subscribe to the show wherever it is you get your podcast. Give us the likes, the ratings, the comments. All that stuff helps to grow the show, allows other people to find the show as well. And you can follow along on Instagram and Twitter at Game of Stones Pod. That's where Scott will tweet photos of his new T-shirts. You can also find us at gameofstonespod.com. All the episodes are there, some blog posts. You can also find our merch store there. We have T-shirts available. All the proceeds from those shirts are going to Food Banks Canada. So if you want to check that out, we have 3 colors, gray, red, black, in both men's and women's. And of course, as always, if you don't want to buy our shirt and want to donate to Food Banks Canada or your local food bank, you're not going to get any argument from us. And Scott, we last updated the donations, I think last month. So now that we're at the end of August, we'll update the donations next week and make sure we get all that submitted before the end of the month.
Yes, that sounds good.
So we will be back with you next week for another new episode. But until then, keep your brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.